For more on this, we can cross straight over to the European Parliament in Strasbourg and bring in Euronews' EU editor, Maria Tadeo. Good morning, Maria. What is the latest on this?
Well, good morning, Maeve. And so close yet so far. It's a massive trade deal that could be signed with Latin American countries, including, of course, Brazil and Argentina. The head of the European Commission, as you said, was supposed to get on a flight on December 20th, but that is now excused upon up in the air because the French are calling for a delay to this vote. Germany and Spain are pushing to get it done. They see big business opportunity, but it now hangs really in the hands and in the balance of the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. She could decide whether there's a qualified majority to get it through the finish line or a blocking minority enough to grind this to a halt. Now, to debrief, we are joined indeed by Thomas Waitz, who is a member of the European Parliament for the Greens. Of course, you oppose this deal. Why? Because some would argue at this point it just defies all logic.
Well, it might be a good deal for industry, but we're sacrificing small and medium-scale farmers. We're putting them into an unfair competition while cutting the funds for farming in the European Union at the same time. We have a situation where, pesticides are used in South America that are banned in the European Union. They have no control over the origin of beef. They have no control over the use of antibiotics as growth promoters. So that's double standards.
Okay, you say it's double standards. But when the Commission say we have done everything to include the safeguards, and by the way, you're going to both here. When they say you will get compensated if there is unfair competition, are they lying or what?
No, well, the safeguards, this is kind of a tranquilizer, a sedative, especially for the French farmers. Basically, this is already in the trade agreement, and it's just the implementation legislation. There's nothing new about that. These safeguard mechanisms will only start working after the damage has been done to the market. And as a farmer, you only go bankrupt once, because if you're bankrupt, then your land is owned by the bank and it's over.
Okay, but let's talk about the farmers, because some would argue the opposition to Mercosur has nothing to do with the terms now. It really is about, and I say this with all due respect, the farming lobby and the subsidies around it. And ultimately, it comes down to money. How do you respond to that?
No, well, it's the big farming industry that will profit, and it's the massive amount of small and medium farmers that will pay the price. So if this is the farming lobby that you're talking about here, I'm also part of the lobby that lobbies for small-scale farmers. Because if we lose them, we lose the rural areas, we lose infrastructure in rural areas, we also lose the ability to supply our population independently with food. And this is, I think, a high value that we should protect.
What about those who say there's geopolitical value? This is a new alliance with Latin American countries. What you're doing is short-sighted, and it's also dangerous at this moment in time.
Well, there is absolutely geopolitical value in this, but then support the European farmers. You cannot cut the funds for the farmers by 20%, literally, and by 40% if you include inflation. Then support the farmers, right, and don't sacrifice them just for the profit of a few multinational companies or European industry.
Okay, so how is this going to end then? Because the clock is really ticking. Some say if this flops on December 20th, that's it. Mercosur is dead and left for good now. So how will this end, and what can we put on the table in 4 days to get it through the finish line?
Well, Commission can still promise that they adjust the so-called multi-annual financial framework, so the budget for the next 7 years, and support farmers in, being able to survive this unfair.
They cannot do this in 4 days, and you know this very well. The deadline is December 20th. They cannot change the budget in 4 days.
The Commission can, if there's a political will. They come out with the communication and give promises at least. It's not a final decision, but they can see that they take the worries of farmers serious. And they also do this to make this deal happen.
Of course, a lot of this now depends too on the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. The French are now calling for a delay to this vote. She could decide which way it goes. So which way is it going to go?
I think she's going to carve in, as she did in many occasions. Unfortunately, that's what I expect from Georgia.
Because she's weak? She's weak?
No, because she has a tradition in promising and not fulfilling her promises.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us, sir. And of course, Maeve, that was Thomas Waitz, who is a member of the European Parliament. And of course, the Green Party. A vote is expected too on the safeguards, but the big vote, Maeve, will be the member states. And we just talked about, it really comes down to Rome. And Giorgia Meloni, she has the power either to delay it and possibly kill it or make it fly.
It does indeed. Maria Tadeo, thank you so much for that live update from quite a quiet Strasbourg this morning. And thanks, of course, to the Austrian MEP Thomas Waitz as well.